What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Scream 6, directed by the directing duo known as Radio Silence. Scream 6 is the sixth installment into the Scream franchise, and is the sequel to the 2022 requel, also directed by Radio Silence. The overall story of Scream 6 is as follows. The remaining survivors of the 2022 movie are now living in New York City for a chance to restart and have a new life. However, the past comes back as a new series of killings have started to take place. So yeah, that's the overall story of Scream 6. Let's go over this movie the best way we can. I have both a like and dislike of Scream 6. This is a movie that I feel is a vast improvement over what came before it. Now, I did not hate Scream 5, but I also wasn't wowed by Scream 5. And Scream 5 did a lot of things that I just didn't really agree with. Scream 6 rectifies some of those complaints, but it also expands on certain ideas that I just found confusing and find completely just disconnected from what this franchise is all about. And a lot of that problem is with the character of Sam Carpenter and what the 2022 movie established and what this movie expanded upon. And I'll get to that when I get to my complaints. But just from an overall visual, an overall presentation, I think Scream 6 is much, much better. Swapping the location from Woodsboro to New York was a good move, even though New York was really underutilized, and I'll get to that when I get to my complaints. I think the overall story of Scream 6, it started out as an interesting mystery. You know, like, what's going on? Like, what's this? Like, why is the killer leaving Ghostface masks of the past? Like, what's it building up to? And then when you get to the ultimate revelation, it's a complete and utter ripoff of Scream 2, and a poorly done ripoff at that, to be honest with you. But again, I will get to that when I get to my complaints. I know I keep a lot of the positives that I'm trying to mention. It all goes back to just negatives, because this movie just did things I just did not care for. It had interesting ideas that ended up just going back. That ended up leading to nothing really all that interesting. Yeah, it's like when you actually see the ending of this movie, it kind of makes you think that they just would have ran with a long-running fan theory and just had that particular individual be revealed as the killer, because the overall revelation of who the killers are, plural, is just, like I said, it's just a retread of Scream 2, but a poorly done retread at that. So yeah, like I said, I'll expand more on my thoughts when I actually talk about that section of the movie. I'm doing my best to try to get these positives out of the way, or at least trying to find positives, because I do got some positives. Like, number one, I like the cold open. The cold open of Scream 6 is actually very different. It's different from how it is in previous Scream movies. Like, it starts off with Samara Weaving, who is playing this college professor. She gets a phone call from the guy. She goes into a dark alley and she gets stabbed. Okay, it's no different than any other Scream movie. But here's the twist. After she is killed off, the cold open sees us following the perpetrator who killed the professor, this kid named Jason, played by Tony Revelari. So the entire cold open is pretty much Jason being stalked by the actual killer of this movie. I like this cold open. It's different from what came before it, because it puts a twist on what came before it. Like, normally in a Scream movie, you know, we see this girl. She has a conversation with a guy on the phone. It ends up being the actual killer who is going to be part of the mystery. And then once this person gets dispatched and then we get the Scream title and we go into the main plot. In this case, it was done much, much differently. We see the person get killed, and then for the remainder of the cold open, we're following another character who is the person who committed the crime. And we see this person be stalked by the actual killer. So I kind of like it. It's the killer stalking another killer thing, which is different for a Scream movie. Like, yeah, that cold open showed a lot of promise, even though I think whatever came after it was a very mixed bag. But at least the opener, the first 15 minutes, was really, really strong, and I really like it a lot. I think a lot of the kill scenes in this movie, some of them are actually really good. I ain't gonna lie. Like, there's two to me that really stand out that I really do like a lot. That is the bodega scene where Ghostface has a shotgun and the subway scene towards the end of the movie where Mindy and this character Ethan are being stalked by Ghostface while in a subway train full of people. I think these two scenes are actually really, really good. Now, I know a lot of people have criticized the scene in the bodega of Ghostface with a shotgun, saying that that's out of character. If you actually watch the first two Scream movies, even though the killers are out of the Ghostface costume by that point, they're using guns. It's nothing new for the franchise for the killer to pretty much for the killer to have a gun in the final act. I mean, come on, man. I mean, let's be real. Even in the final act of this movie, the killers are back to using guns. So it's not really this new thing of the killer using a gun. The only thing that's new about it is that the killer's using a gun while in costume. I found the criticism for the bodega scene to be a little childish in my opinion. Because if you go back to the franchise, it's not really going against what came before, because the killer always uses a gun in the third act of these movies. It's nothing new at all. But I like the pacing of the bodega scene. I like the threat of the bodega scene. I like the fact that Ghostface is walking into a place that's populated and is literally causing havoc. Like, this Ghostface has balls. Like, this Ghostface is not afraid to kill you while you're surrounded by others. Like I said, the bodega scene shows that, and the subway scene shows that this Ghostface is not playing around. So, I like that stuff. That was good. In terms of the other Ghostface scenes that take place in this movie, I ain't gonna lie. I think they utilized Ghostface much better in this movie than they did in the 2022 movie. Like, I like the scene where he kills Sam's therapist at his home while he's watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Kevin McCarthy. He gets stabbed through a door, and the knife goes through the door and jams him right in the eye. That was a nice death scene. I like the I like the scene where the characters are trying to go from one edge of the apartment to another end of the apartment by the use of this ladder that was given to them by Sam's boyfriend in this movie named Danny. That whole scene I thought was actually really well done, which leads to the death of the Annika character, who's actually the girlfriend of Mindy. And Annika, when she falls off that ladder, her head bounces off like a dumpster and is completely just almost ripped off, and half her face is like ripped off in a very mangled way. Like, I like that. The escape scene is actually really well done. It has a good pacing, good tension, and I like that scene. It's one of the best scenes in this movie. I also like with the scene where Gail gets her little showcase where the killer's chasing her. Now, I would have killed Gail off in this scene. Why they let her live, I do not know. I mean, you had no problem killing off Dewey in Scream 5. Why can't Gail die in this one? Like, I like the whole scene, and it was clearly building to this being Gail's, send off. But she survives, and I was completely let down by that. Like, why? Like, Gail dying is what this movie needed to take another step. Like, to me, the new Scream movies should showcase a legacy character from the past that ultimately leads to their demise. Like, Scream 5 was about Dewey. Scream 6 should have been about Gail. Scream 7, if they get Neve Campbell to return. By the way, fuck you, Paramount, for treating the lead actress of this franchise like complete and utter garbage. And Scream 7 should be about Sydney. Now, whether or not you want to kill off the Sydney character, I don't know. I mean, depending on how that story gets written and if they even bring back that character, it's a wait and see. But the way they utilized Gail in Scream 6, which was not all that great, and it kind of reverted her back to her Scream 1 counterpart after all that development she went through throughout the course of the films, I wasn't a big fan of that, especially with the fact that she exploited Dewey's death a little bit, and the fact that she brought up the idea of maybe Sam being a killer just like Billy. Come on, man. I mean, Gail had so much development from the first 4 movies where she got where she could have gotten past that phase, but instead she's still that bloodthirsty reporter who just wants to make a quick buck. It's almost as if Gail never changes, which is another reason why I thought she should have died in this movie, just for reverting back to what she was in the first 4 Scream movies. Always chasing the story. This one should have made her the story. I think it would have been better. I think her character would have been better off for it. Like, even though she made progress as a character, she ends up reverting back to her old ways, and that's what cost her. And that's what cost her in the end. That could have been a good send off to Gale. Like, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, sort of way. But no, Gale lives. Let down by that. I like the inclusion of Hayden Panettiere as Kirby, bringing her character back from Scream 4. I like her little thing, how she didn't let what happened to her make her a victim. She became a cop, and so that way she has a reason to go after the monsters who victimize others. That was a nice little thing. I like the relationship that she develops with the Carpenter sisters. That was nice. The scene of Kirby and Mindy in the theater shows that Kirby is the more likable of the movie buffs, while Mindy is the most hated of them all. And just because Mindy has a connection to Randy, that does not make her a good character. I still think Mindy fucking sucks. And I'll get to that when I get to my negatives, because I think Mindy is completely fucking insufferable in this movie. Is the budding romance between Chad and Tara. I thought that was actually really well handled, and it kind of gave me a little bit of nostalgia for when Dewey was first courting Gale in the first 3 Scream movies. I kind of got that with Tara and Chad, and I like these two as a couple, and I hope that they do expand upon it in Scream 7. I don't like what they did with the Chad character in this movie, and I'll get to that when I get to my negatives, because I think it was completely outlandish, and there's no way in hell this guy's still breathing, but I'll get to that when I get to that. But I find Chad just to be a very likable guy. Like, Chad is like one of those jocks that I would want to be friends with in high school, because he just seems like a cool dude. Like, he's like that lovable jock that you just want to hang out with, because he's always going to have something funny or stupid to say, but you know it's going to come from a good place. Now, he doesn't mean anything bad by it. I like the character of Chad. I liked him in the 2022 movie, and I liked him in this movie. I think he got a little bit more to do in this movie than he did in the last movie. The stuff with Sam Carpenter. Listen, I didn't think Melissa Barrera was all that great of an actress in the last movie. Over here, she's portrayed a little bit better. I like the whole idea of her having a new boyfriend in New York, the character of Danny. I like how Danny is actually a decent guy, which is a rarity in this franchise for the boyfriend characters to actually be decent people. But again, it's also very reminiscent of Derek from Scream 2, who the movie was teasing to be a killer, but he was an overall decent human being who did have a lot of love for Sydney. You get that with Danny and with Sam. I thought that relationship was okay. Could have been expanded upon a much better than what it was in the film, but I did like it for what it was. What I don't like is how this movie continues to double down on Sam having these apparitions and visions of Billy. Number one, I thought it was far-fetched enough that Billy had this secret affair with a girl from high school, where Sam was a product of. That to me still does not make any fucking sense to me whatsoever. It didn't make sense in 2022, and it doesn't make sense now. You're just bringing back a legacy character because your modern character has nothing else going for her. And the whole running thing of, is Sam gonna or not gonna pick up her father's legacy as a killer? Why are they still teasing this? Like, seriously, why are they still teasing this? Like, what direction do you want to take this character in? Do you want her to do it? Do you don't want her to do it? What are we doing here? The Sam character having that connection to Billy makes her very, very problematic, because it feels like the writers just don't know what to do. They don't know if they want to go all the way in with that or not go all the way in with that. To me, just go all the way in with that and just have a sister versus sister. Like, Sam finally snaps, and now her little sister has got to make the choice. Does she try to save her sister, or does she kill her sister because she's now officially just went into full-blown cuckoo's nest? That's the only way I can have any interest in what direction you take the Sam character in. I mean, I like the idea of her trying to seek therapy I like the idea of her trying to seek therapy as a way to cope with what happened to her, and the fact that, the fact that she liked killing Richie. Okay, that's somewhat interesting. She liked the feeling that killing someone gave her. But again, the movie's afraid to actually double down on that or take it in any clever direction. It's like, what are we doing here? And I already mentioned it in Scream 2022. I hate the idea that she's seeing visions of Billy. I think it fucking sucks. I didn't like it in Scream 3 when Sydney was seeing the ghostly visage of her mother, and I don't like it in this with Sam seeing the ghostly visage of her father. It just sucks. Like, the Scream movies have always been grounded in a sense of reality. Bringing in this pseudo supernatural element doesn't work for this franchise. It does not work at all. These movies are more grounded. So yeah, I still do not like the Sam character in terms of the direction they want to take, in terms of the just directionless angle they want to go with her, because it seems like they want to go one way, but they keep stalling. Like, what are you stalling for? Just do it and get it over with, because it's not interesting. It's really fucking dull and really fucking boring. uh, in terms of this movie's production value, much better than the 2022 movie. And that's not to say the 2022 movie was badly done, because it wasn't. That felt like a Wes Craven movie. So did this. This had the look and feel of a Scream movie. And the change of location to New York, I liked it. However, New York was grossly underutilized. You have a Scream movie in New York. The possibilities are endless. You're going to tell me that you could not give me a ghost face chasing down one of these characters in a pitch black Central Park? We did not get that. It was presented to you on a silver platter. A ghost face scene in Central Park. That would have been awesome. We didn't get that. Hell, if you want to be really different and really over the top, how about Ghostface chasing somebody on a speedboat on the Hudson River? That could have been outlandishly over the top, but completely different for this franchise. We didn't get that either. We didn't get these characters on Ellis Island. We didn't get them being stalked in Grand Central Station on the way to the subway. Like, I don't care if this movie was shot in Canada. I don't give a damn. You could have easily disguised Canada as a New York location. They've done it for many, many movies. It's the fact that these writers and directors did not have the creative sense to utilize New York landmarks to do some creative scenes with the franchise, with this movie, really just irritates me, because the ideas were there, but you just weren't clever enough to want to either think of them or utilize them. And that's a shame. Like, why put this movie in New York if you're not going to utilize the New York locations to your advantage and do some really cool things with it? That's what annoyed me with this movie the most, is like, you put the movie in New York, but you didn't do anything. Now, I know a lot of people are comparing this movie to Jason Takes Manhattan and stuff like that, but here's the deal. You at least had a shot of Jason in the middle of Times Square. We didn't even get that with Ghostface in this movie. Again, Jason Takes Manhattan feels more like Jason in New York than this feels like Ghostface in New York. That's just my opinion personally. Yeah, that's a big negative. The underutilization of New York as a character in the film is completely... New York is not a character in the movie. It's just a backdrop. You could have set this movie in Woodsboro and it would not have changed a goddamn thing. It would have still been the same fucking movie. No joke. Now, if you would have utilized more of the New York locations, then it would have been a different movie, but it wasn't. Another negative. I hate the character of Mindy. Now, I had already been mentioning that I hate the character of Mindy. I liked her. I somewhat liked her in 2022. I thought she was a Rainey knockoff to me, but she was okay. This motherfucker is completely insufferable in this movie, to the point that she's mean-spirited. Like, she has no qualms accusing every single person of being a killer. She came across as very mean-spirited. She came across as just too self-absorbed with herself. And guess what? I did not feel 1 ounce of sorrow for her when her girlfriend died, because I'm like, you know what? Now get Mindy, because I want her dead. I did not like the character of Mindy in Scream 6. She's not endearing. She's not cool. She's not funny. Randy was endearing. Randy did not go around accusing his friends of being killers. And when he did, he was more playful with it. Mindy is just completely mean-spirited with it. And the whole scene of her trying to explain that they're in a franchise and making references to Star Wars and the MCU on how every character is no longer off limits to die. Yeah, this movie did not even follow those tropes, because the core four in this movie, they're still alive. Not one of them died. Chad got jackhammered in the third act by two ghost face killers. He got stabbed more times in that one scene than any other person in this franchise has ever gotten stabbed. That probably broke the record for the amount of stabs one person could take in one movie. And he still lives. That made no sense to me. That was so stupid. Yeah. now we're in full blown negative zone. Now, I already mentioned this. The first two acts of this movie are actually really strong. I like the investigation. I like the whole idea of the Ghostface killer leaving these leading mass of previous Ghostface, leading up to a big revelation. Now, earlier in the movie, we get to this warehouse, which is a shrine to the Ghostface crimes, and we get props from movies of the past, which was cool seeing all these things. We get the TV that killed Stu. This movie makes a lot of references to Stu and to the fact of whether or not he really is dead or if he really is alive. And given the revelation of this movie, you might as well have just had him be alive, because holy God, was this revelation. This revelation was a complete ripoff of Scream 2, and not even a good one at that. But I'm going to get to that momentarily. The shrine room. I like the look. I like the set of it. It's cool. Of course, this is where Sam looks at Billy's Ghostface costume, and you get that cringy fucking scene of her talking to his apparition, which is completely fucking stupid. I hate that. I fucking hate that so much. I don't like it at all. I'm sorry. So yeah, the shrine stuff I like. Everything else that came after it was hit and miss, because this is where you get to Gail's set piece. This is where you get to Gail's set piece and her surviving her attack, which I wasn't really big on. Then you get the whole subway scene, which I really did like, which should have been the death of Mindy, but that bitch survives. And now we get to the third act. So throughout this entire movie, the gang's been working with this character known as Detective Bailey, played by Delmont Mulrooney, who is a New York City cop. He has his daughter named Quinn, who appeared early on in the movie, but gets taken out. And then throughout this movie, you have this character called Ethan, who is like Chad's friend in this movie. So now we get to the third act, and it's revealed that Detective Bailey has been orchestrating these killings, and that Quinn and Ethan are actually his two kids. And the reason why they've been killing everyone, and the reason why they've been specifically attacking Sam and her sister, is because they are the family of Richie Kirsch, played by the killer from the 2022 movie, played by Jack Quaid. Now, why do I think this is a poorly done ripoff of Scream 2? Because the killer in Scream 2 was Nancy Loomis, the mother of Billy. Yeah, the entire third act of this movie was a complete and utter ripoff of Scream 2, but where Scream 2 actually has some decent social commentary to it, which is along the lines of Sydney more or less accusing Nancy of abandoning her son, hence what led to Billy to have these murderous rampages. This just feels like a family who just wants to take down the Carpenter sisters because they killed their brother and their son. That's basically it. There's no underlining message that's going on between that. It's this family just wants to kill the Carpenter sisters, and then they want to pin the murder on Sam since she is the daughter of a serial killer. That's basically it. Like this movie, like these new movies continue to just expand, to just double down on the idea of Sam. Is she going to pick up the legacy or not pick up the legacy? And it doesn't get any more teased than in this third act, where she dons the Ghostface costume to pretty much kill off Bailey. And then you have that last scene where she looks at the mask and you got this brooding tension filled music, but then she just throws the mask on the ground. So is she going to, so like the movie, like they continue to leave that question open, just like answer it already. It should have been answered in this movie. The whole idea of her going to therapy is for her to finally come up with the answer on her own as to whether or not she's going to join her dad or not join her dad. At the end of this movie, she throws the mask down, which is symbolizing that she's not going to take up the legacy. Okay, when we get Scream 7, if this fucking franchise once again gives me an apparition of her talking to her dad, I'm gonna get aggravated, because make up your mind. So yeah, I didn't like, not all, and like I said, not all of the third, even though I think the third act is a rip off of Scream 2, not all of it is bad. Like, it is decent, it's thrilling. I know, you do get some nods and references, and Kirby does get a chance to kill one of the killers, but it's just so derivative of what came before. Like I said earlier, 6 is basically a poor remake of Scream 2. But where Scream 2 had a lot more intrigue and is a little more interesting, this one had interesting ideas and concepts, but the execution was just like in 2022. It was just okay. I mean, I like this one more than I like 2022 because at least it gets out of Woodsboro, but it didn't even utilize the location that it was in to its fullest potential. And again, like in 2022, Scream 6 is a movie that is overall full of wasted potential, though I think this movie was much more better handled than what came before it. So with all that being said, Scream 6 to me is a solid, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I like it slightly better than what came before it, but still, so much better could this movie have been if these writers and the directors had more creativity to them and didn't just watch Scream 2 and just completely just remake that movie. Because that's what this movie is. This movie is a remake of Scream 2 with some different aesthetic changes and with a much more aggressive Ghostface that does more interesting things. Now, the grade is 6 out of 10. Now I'm going to do some Easter eggs that I did like. I like the whole idea of playing Jason Takes Manhattan on the TV. That was cool. I like the reference to Wes Craven in this movie where they go into a deli called Abe's Snake. If you're familiar with Wes Craven's history as a director, he started out as a porn director, and Abe Snake was actually his porn director pseudonym. So that was a nice reference. And you have also nice Easter eggs that are planned throughout this movie. And like I said, this third act was a complete ripoff of Scream 2. And it kind of just makes me wish that they would have just brought back Stu as the overall orchestrator and villain of this movie. I don't know what his motivations would have been. Maybe his motivations would have been the fact that he wants to finish what he and Billy started, and he wants to try and like lure Sam onto his side. That way Sam could be his new Billy or something like that. Like anything would have it would have pushed the ongoing story with Sam in a different direction. It would have brought back a legacy character who I would prefer stays dead, but it would have been different than what we got with this. So yeah, overall 6 out of 10 for Scream 6. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.